We are continuing our tutorial for Photoshop CS5 for photographers, and in this episode we're going to be looking at the different palettes that Photoshop CS5 offers. A palette is simply a dockable or movable panel that's going to hold tools or information. This over here on the left is our tool palette, and you can see that it holds all of our tools, and I can click on it and drag it and move it, and I can move it anywhere that I want, anywhere that it's going to be most useful for me in working on these different images. You can also bring it back to where it was supposed to go and let it dock and sit there out of the way. You can also use the image itself as a palette if you want, and drag it down, and it's become its own window within Photoshop. But it's pretty easy to dock once more as well. If you saw there at the top, a blue line formed right here. When you see that blue line and you're holding it down, it's telling you that it's ready to dock. If you release it there, it's going to dock within Photoshop. Our next layer is, the next palette is the layers palette. And this is pretty helpful. It shows you and helps you control your different layers. If I want to add a layer, let me go back down here and add a blank layer, and I'm just going to fill it with black. What we have, what you can look at the layers as, is a stack of papers in a sense. So at the bottom of our stack we have a photograph, but on top we have a white piece of paper, and the white piece of paper is covering it up. If I click this is going to make that layer invisible and not of any use within this file as it is, but it gives you an indication of how it's used. We can also change the opacity. So if I lower this to 50%, the bottom layer is showing through, and you're only seeing half of this top layer. So these layers come in real handy with other features that you can do within Photoshop. Our history palette is extremely important. It shows you the different things that have been done within this picture since you started. And you can easily go back and change the steps that you've taken, and it just keeps track of it. It's very, very handy, especially if you've done a whole bunch of things, and you can always come back and make adjustments to that. Our next is the action palette. I have a bunch of actions set up. Photoshop comes with some, but it's really simple to make your own actions for tasks that you see yourself doing over and over again. It just doesn't make sense to do them over and over again when all you need to do is set it up so that you push a button once. For example, this one, and this is telling me to flatten it, so I'll flatten it. And with one push of a button there, I have a black and white image, because that's what this button is programmed to do. So let me back here and get back to my original form of that picture. The next set of palettes are the character and paragraph, and this is related to the type tool. So when you have text, when you put text on the screen, you can use these to adjust the font size or how far apart the different characters are, the color, and all sorts of things. The next palette is our brush settings. We have a ton of settings here, and we can also simply just choose any brush size or softness that we want to use. The information palette is important. It shows us the red, green, and blue values of each pixel that we want to look at. Every pixel is determined with an amount of red, green, and blue. Those three colors mixed together give us all the colors that we have available. So where my cursor is now, it's red 100, green 95, and blue 31. Where it becomes important for me is I like to see the skin tones, and also sometimes where things are blown out. Our colors work on a scale from 0 being black to 255 being white. And up here on top of her head where the sun's hitting her, you can see it's burned out or blown out at 254, 254, 254. But that's on her hair, and you'd kind of expect that, so it's not a big deal and it's a smaller area. But where I look at the numbers a lot of times is on the skin. I don't want the reds to be too high, and 222 for red tells me that's a pretty good exposure, so I like where that's sitting. The histogram palette expresses that information on a graph. Over here on the left represents 0, and on the right represents 255. And so this shows you the number of pixels within the picture that represents that. So this area is the darker area, and this is the lighter area. There's a red spike here going up, and what that is, that's indicating this blown out spot that I was showing you earlier on top of her head. And the navigator palette is simply going to allow you to zoom in, zoom out. I don't use it a whole lot because you can use that by using your spacebar and controller, spacebar and alt to zoom in and out pretty easily. The next one is the mini bridge, and really this is working like a folder within Windows or within your Mac. That's going just to allow you to browse through the different pictures and bring them up to work on them. It's pretty simple. The color palette allows you to adjust the colors that you're going to use, for example within a brush. If you click on that, it brings you to another palette that you can use to find what color you want. Or if you wanted, you can insert, if you know the numbers, you can enter the text here, or the numbers right here. You can move the dial and see that everything is changing there. If you want it done easily, you can just pick your own color within the swatches palette. Say pick a red and go back to the color, and it's changed red. And you can also see down here in our tool palette that it's changed red as well. Go change it back to black, and there we go. And the last one we're going to look at for now is our adjustments palette, and this is going to allow us to easily make an adjustment into a layer. For example, curves. We brought up the curves dialog and it made a layer for it. And we will cover these adjustments in the next tutorial.